All right, and we're live. Welcome to day 4 of the debate series. And to our first session of the day, we have our women's officers candidates. So here we have Angelina and Eunice, and we also have our office bearer, Kirthi. So before we begin, let's take a look at the agenda. Okay, so we're right now starting off with the introduction, which will be followed by the opening statement by our candidates, followed by Q&A from the office bearers. Then after that, we'll be having Q&A from students. So from our audience joining us today, please drop in your comments if you have any questions in regards to the candidates' manifestos or policies. After that, we'll wrap up with a closing statement from the candidates before ending the session. So without any further ado, I'll pass over to the candidates for their opening statement. All the best.
Thank you very much. And hello, everyone. I'm Ali, but you can call me Angelina, and this is my partner.
Hello, I'm Zhaoyan, but you can call me Yanis, and we're candidates that are running for the 2022 Women's Officers position. We appreciate the election committee and Kriti, the current women's officer, for this opportunity to let us to have a place to speak out and to reinforce our commitment to this role.
What made us run for this position is our passion to maintain the safety of students, ensuring the diverse voices to be heard, and to foster inclusivity that has especially encouraged us to engage in this role. By meaning safety for all students, we mean for all students to feel safe to express themselves in a way that they feel comfortable and without the fear of being threatened or discriminated against who they are. And we are also willing to continue to spread the culture of non-discrimination and acceptance throughout the Monash community. We wish to emphasize inclusivity, especially for women and the LGBTQI+ community on campus to feel a sense of belonging, that they are not alone and they have us in the community to rely on.
As we stated in the manifesto, we have 4 core concepts as women's officers candidates. Firstly, safety. We believe in a safe platform where women and the LGBTQIA+ community will allow them to be relieved from biased judgments. Secondly, raising awareness on gender and sexuality issues. With the knowledge of these issues, it can provide a better understanding. Thus, this would lead to fostering a culture of inclusivity through having discussions and conversations, improving mutual understanding, and learn more about gender equality concerns. Moreover, being approachable and responsive for women and the LGBTQIA+ community. We believe that being approachable to students could reduce concerns related to sexual harassment and underreported cases. That helps students to be relieved from feeling isolated and anxious. The main idea is to be approachable for students to feel comfortable and reach out to us. We would then provide them with the necessary resources, our listening ears, and support. Last but not least, fostering inclusivity. The mindset of inclusivity can develop positive change in students by understanding the diversity in the society and the uniqueness of one another. Therefore, a culture of acceptance and respect for students, especially for women and the LGBTQIA+ community on campus, can be promoted.
For students who are in need of listening ear, we can offer support and assistance in a respectful manner when the approaches are feeling comfortable and are ready to open up and talk. While we are being approached and during our role as women's officers, we aim to create a safe space that is free from judgment and any bias, as we do not tolerate discrimination on our campus and our role as women's officers. We will also work on organizing events for interaction and for students to gain knowledge on various topics related to sexuality and gender issues and the LGBTQI+ community and so on.
All right. So thank you to our candidates for the opening statement. I'll now pass it over to our office bearer to carry on your Q&A.
All right, thank you. So great speech, guys. I do have some questions for y'all. So let me just start with it. Yeah. So the first question that I have is, um, since you guys have attended Monash only online, which is fine. Um, I'm sure like you can use some transferable skills if you do get to go back to campus next year. But I do not know how if you'll understand what it's like being in women's department, because I've not seen any interaction from you guys with the department. So when you do not know that, like, how do you think you will be able to conduct events for the next year? Yeah.
Since we do not have any experience on campus for activities on women's officers, but we do have a chance to attend your on women's officers activities throughout online, and we believe we can carry on that idea and the concept of the women's officers activities on campus. And if we are not enough manageable to have a actual on-campus event, we will ask for help for students to have a sufficient experience in women's officers events.
All right. Could you tell me about some of the events that you guys have planned for next year?
So for events, we do not have a specific detail on the plan. However, and it is subject to approval. So we do have in mind that we want to have sessions where we can invite a guest speaker, such as successful entrepreneur women, to come over and give a talk, and also having the monthly discussion uh, that is currently being held this year, and we hope to continue that as well. And also, we have a plan on having a photo art fashion contest where we can empower students to be able to express themselves in different forms of art. And yeah, this is what we have in mind.
All right. Okay. So you, when we had a briefing session in the past, you did tell me that it is you want to be in the office, in the women's office, because you deeply, passionately care about women's issues, right? So I was wondering, so the women's office and the events were running throughout the year, right? So I was wondering, you don't necessarily have to be in a leadership role to be involved in women's issues and like support the cause that we already have running. So um, and that's also one, maybe it is because you do not know about the events that you were not able to attend. So that's one big issue, like reaching out to students through online platform. So um, first, so I have two questions from that. So why weren't you guys involved in the previous year? And also, if it's because you haven't seen the our promotional posts, then what do you think you can do different to get people to attend? Yeah.
For me, in current year, I'm under the MUSA Activities Department Subcommittee, and the reason I didn't have an opportunity to participate in the women's officers subcommittee is because first, as you mentioned, I didn't really notice about the role of women's officers. However, I had this incident that I wanted to speak out about myself as a woman and to stimulate everyone's awareness of having conversation on gender and sexuality issues. And by taking this role, I believe this will encourage people to have a conversation, knowing more about the sexual and gender issues, and to be open to comment. And for people to have awareness of these women's officers, we believe to promote through women's officers Instagram page that you already have, and asking for other departments for collaboration and to promote our events if we have in the future. And we also think to promote our role in orientations for year one students know about this role to have more engagement in our activities as well.
Okay. Actually, I didn't mean to ask about the subcommittee. I meant like just events in general. Okay. I think that brings me to my next question. For our events, right? There's whenever we, if you see, our attendees are people who already care about awareness related to the scope of our department, and they are always there. We all get to learn from each other, but I feel like this conversation needs to extend to those who actually don't feel like these issues are personal to them, and like it doesn't matter. Feminism is like a trend that everyone's following, and then LGBTQ rights is just like it's not important to them because they don't belong to the community. So how do you think you can extend this to people who actually don't know about this? Because our discussions are very niche and we only get it's like preaching to the converted. um, we don't really get attention from people who don't care about issues, which I think is a concern. So, how do you think you are going to be able to do that?
I think that we conclude that we will not use force for these people to understand. However, we do think that by progressively spreading awareness, raising awareness on important issues that people should look out on, because they should know that by raising awareness on these issues is helping a community of people where they do not have equal opportunities and rights in society in general. So we hope to use our platform, our department, for a space for us to promote conversations and not use force for people who do not understand. But however, we hope that they come to a point where they will understand that this is really helpful for the community, for people, for women and the gender minorities, acknowledging and understanding their hardships, knowing gender related challenges, gender equality concerns, and yeah.
All right, okay. So, another thing which I have to inevitably ask you is related to the country that we are in. While it's great and we have freedom to do whatever we want, when it comes to LGBTQ issues, it's a bit sensitive, um, because of the law. And when we talk to our authorities in Monash, also they have to pay attention to the country's laws, right? Even though we're an Australian uni, since we're located in Malaysia, so there's a risk that comes with it, if you understand, when we speak up. So how are you going to weigh the risk? How are you going to manage?
I think that our department, we can use it as although we can't influence like the law we have in Malaysia, and we would like to use our platform and department as a starting point for the Monash community to have a safe space and knowing, having students to have equal rights and opportunities and the safety for students, especially for women and the LGBTQIA community.
um Actually, I don't know if I agree with that, because we've already started a while ago. We have a club that fosters inclusivity, that we have women's office that is not there in any other school. So um, how do you think that, again, like, how do you think you can mitigate the risk? I think, like, one thing that you can do is speak to the authorities, which is what I've been trying to do. But it's not easy to be so safe when the law doesn't support you, right? um, So have you? So I want to revert the question back to you again. So what do you think you can do about that?
We believe we can do as you have been doing, like talking to the authorities for more understanding. But we do understand that there will be a risk in Malaysia because of the law, but we will try to do our best as possible to enhance the understanding of LGBTQIA plus community in our Monash University. And I think it is important not to give up negotiating for understanding rather than just giving up and putting aside. We will try to negotiate as possible for our activity.
Right. Okay. That's amazing. Um, I think I'm running out of questions, but I think one last question that I want to ask you is about your plans when it comes to subcom management, because that's one issue that I really, really had to deal with, and also retention. So, since you guys met up for the role, how do you think you will be able to keep everybody motivated for the department, to run for this department?
We do understand that it is difficult to be connected with people because we're having online campus life, but we will try to recruit people who are keen to engage in the women's officer subcommunity role and who are passionate to learn from the activities that for in order to maintain the motivation that they already have. And we will also try to communicate well with the subcommunity to make sure if they don't have any concerns about our activities, if they're sure what they have to do as a subcommunity for good teamwork and to have a good connection between them.
All right, thank you for that. I think that brings us to the end of time as well. So, good luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. So thank you to our office bearer for the questions, the candidates. We'll move on to the Q&A with the audience. But before getting there, for those of you who just joined in, or if you haven't dropped in any comments yet, if you do have any questions or clarifications you would like to seek from the candidates in regards to their manifestos, policies, or any answers to questions that they have been asked, feel free to drop it into the comments below. All right. So let's take a look at the first question. So from Joey, one of women's office's yearly event is an open mic event called Inclusivity Night. What are your plans for that? And how do you plan to do more rather than just sticking with the status quo? Yep. So candidates, you can take 1 minute to discuss on your answers. So while the candidates prepare, you can also take note that if, let's say, any questions come up, um, that you weren't able to ask today, you can also drop it into the KYC profiles in the comment section on the official MUSA Instagram page. All right. So yeah, I'll hand it over to you, candidates, when you're ready to answer.
For the women's officers annual events, we will plan to success the events because we believe that will encourage students for them to express themselves and be themselves, especially for women's and LGBTQIA plus community students. But also we're planning, as we stated earlier, to have the photo or artistic events that people can anonymously express themselves through photos and art, because we feel being anonymous, we believe it is more easier for them to be themselves and maybe express themselves throughout the society. And also we plan to invite any guest speakers that enables people like women and also LGBTQI plus community to express themselves and to participate in the community as well.
Would like to add on to that. So having events that foster inclusivity, being inclusive for students, especially women and the LGBTQIA plus community, this is so that they would feel represented, welcome, and included. And by fostering a culture of inclusivity, it would provide a sense of belonging for students in campus, and regardless of their gender identity and sexual orientation.
All right, thank you for your answers, candidates. We'll move on to the next question. So for those of you who just joined in, feel free to drop any comments for questions that you have for the candidates. All right. So moving on from Rebecca, how well are you aware of the current events within the women's office? And what changes would you like to seek to make if you were elected?
So to answer this question, currently we do not know of what is happening currently at the moment. But if we were to be elected officially, we would ask for opinions around from students, from diverse perspective, and find out what is really going on, and to review them, and to take a step to act on it by taking necessary measures to improve anything in the future.
All right, Angeline, do you have anything to add on to that?
I'm okay with this answer.
Okay. All right. So moving on to the next question, also by Rebecca. How do you intend on combating virtual sexual harassment? Do you have any policies in mind?
We do not currently have a specific policy to combat with virtual sexual harassment. However, if we were to be elected as a women's officer 2022, We will take appropriate actions that by following the handbook that we have, and also combating with taking connections with the university for appropriate solutions for it.
Okay. Eunice, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I'm good.
All right. So before moving on to our audience, please feel free to drop in any questions that you still have for the candidates as we still have time for this session. All right. So moving on from Nelson, why is it essential to take the gender concerns into account into your um, program design, and how will you implement it?
We believe taking this in concern, it is important because with the knowledge of these issues, it can provide better understanding that will lead to fostering a culture of inclusivity through having discussion and conversations and improving mutual understanding and learning about gender equality's concerns. And we believe that understanding is a core value to create the inclusivity and to combat of these issues in university as well. And we will try to implement activities such as having a discussion related on these topics and to invite some guest speakers for better understanding.
I would like to add on to that. So, better understanding, we believe that it is in a way that being educated on important issues like this and being respectful towards students, especially women and the LGBTQIA plus community, knowing what the hardships they're facing, the gender concerns, and yeah.
All right. Thank you for your answers. So moving on, we have another question from Rebecca. How will you tackle the issue of lecturers breaching policies? For example, in the case a student has made a formal complaint against the lecturer for harassment.
Since the procedure of handling this harassment is depending on to the university, so us women's officer does not have any rights to actually take actions, but we'll have the connection for the victim or survivor to contact with the university for any future action. So we would take consideration of letting the survivor and students to consult with the university for help, and we may want to have a clarification what will the university do after this process has been reported.
Okay. All right. So that's all the questions from the audience so far. So we'll give it some time. If the audience still has any questions, please drop it into the comments. This is the time for you to seek any clarifications or questions that you have in regards to the candidates running for their role. All right. So yes, we'll pass it over to Kirti, who has some questions to follow up on.
Yeah, I was just wondering, uh, based off of the answers that you guys just said, it seems to me as though you guys don't have like a clear picture of what happens in women's department. So, um, how do you think? Why do you have to wait until you are elected to understand what's happening with the department and how to run it? Like, of course, women's office is something that Monash can be excuse me, can be really proud of, because I don't think any other university in Malaysia even has this position. So we do recognize the importance of it, and um, that's great. But why did you think you had to wait till you were elected as the head of the department to be involved in the activities? And you said that you are already a subcom and activities department, so you inevitably knew that women's have things happening. So, yeah. Angelina, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I think the candidates are discussing. Yeah, so we can give them a bit of time. In the meantime, for our audience, if you have any questions, feel free to drop in the comments.
Yes, I would like to answer this question. Um, we we thought as women's officer candidates, we understand we need to understand the process and how what is happening around Monash, and we do seek to have knowledge on that, not after but from now on, to understand what actual behavior we should take and how to handle. However, we believe that as a student right now, we can learn from your activities and throughout the Monash policies for further advanced activities as well.
All right, so we do have a question coming in from the audience. But before that, for the previous question, Kirti, do you have any follow-up that you'd like to ask?
No.
Okay, so from our audience, from Nelson, regarding Rebecca's question earlier in terms of the lecture breaching policies, harassment could occur in the form of a written or visual statement. So, how do you think you could counter or come up with a solution in this scenario?
For this situation, we would ask for clarification and more investigation on these incidents, not actively asking, but asking the survivor for if they feel comfortable and if they feel okay to speak up about what they happened and what they have faced for appropriate solution to be made. And we will also ask the university students' life and also necessary departments to combat this situation appropriately.
And we would provide the necessary resources for assistance and the help they require. So if it were to be severe and they do not feel comfortable in revealing any information on them, and we would suggest them an option to report anonymously, and to follow up with their decision, it's up to them to decide whether if they want to report it or not. Because it is depends on their comfortability to speak up and be able to open up.
All right, candidates, thank you for your answer. So, hope that answers your question. If you have any follow up, feel free to ask in the comments. Or if the audience watching today have any other questions for our candidates, feel free to drop it in the chat box. Okay, so from our women's officer, our current office bearer, do you have any new questions or any additional questions you'd like to add on?
No.
Okay, all right. At the moment, we do not have any further questions, so I'll just give it one more minute. So for anyone who does have questions that it did not come up during this session, you may also choose to drop into the comments under the KYC profiles in the official MUSA Instagram page. Okay, so we do have one question coming in from Mengya. How do you plan to increase the exposure of your department so that other students are more aware of the Women's Officers Department? Yep. So, like mentioned, if you do have any questions, feel free to keep adding it to the comments.
For this question, we will tend to ask other departments in MUSA to able to be promote for us and letting students know to reach to a wider audience, knowing that they are encouraged to seek help from us whenever they feel comfortable. And our main idea is to ask different departments in MUSA to promote.
Are there any add-ons from Anjali?
I'm okay with the answer.
Okay. So moving forward, we do have a follow up based on the previous question from Nelson. So there were a few cases previously whereby the students didn't speak up or wouldn't want to speak up. So what would you do, or how do you think that? What do you think about this situation?
We would recommend for the student to report anonymously because they may feel that they may be harassed or ashamed by reporting their case by telling their individual's information. However, by doing anonymously, they wouldn't identify who you are. So I believe this will encourage people to report the case for to prevent such incidents from happening again. And also, we'll periodically promote that it is okay to ask for help and ask for any help to consult with the university as well.
All right, thank you for your answer, candidate. So, yeah, we have one more question from the audience so far. So, if anyone still has any other questions, please feel free to add to the comments. Okay, so from May, what do you strongly advocate for, and which policies do you think should be improved?
For this question, as a student, we do not have any concerns or opinions against the policy from our past experience. However, we do believe that there's a lot of cases happening outside our community and we believe that being a women's officer, it will enable us to be exposed to a lot of concerns that students has. However, in the moment, we do not have any clear policy on how university will handle the offender after processing all of the file and all of the necessary informations. So we may want to ask for clarification on how the university will take actions on the offender and how will the university take care of the survivor besides counseling itself.
All right. So, in regards to one of the previous questions, the office bearer does have a follow up. So, over to you, Kirti.
I have a follow up to one of your answers. Actually, you said that when people don't have to disclose their identity, it will make them more comfortable to come forward. While it is great to have that option, so like more cases can be reported, the issue that comes with that is if you go through the policies, if you choose to stay anonymous, then there's no way for the university to confirm it. So we can't the university cannot take action against a person just because just because there's a case against them, right? They have to go through the procedures of identifying who it is, identifying if the issue is actually true, and not being falsely accused of such an issue. So when when the when the identity is not disclosed, it is very likely that no strict action might be taken. There will be action taken. I'm not saying that the university won't care if it's anonymous. They will care about it, but um, the policies will be difficult to execute. So how do you think you will be able to provide a safe space to the survivor, um, to come forward and disclose themselves?
So we do want to tell victims or survivors to know that it is okay to seek for help, and then our department is open arms, and we would provide them listening ear to provide necessary support and assistance, and knowing that it is not a burden to ask for help, and overall asking for help would also enhance your overall well-being for a student, and also we aim to do so.
All right. So thank you for the answer. For Kirti, is there anything you'd like to follow up in regards to that?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
So we do have questions from the audience. Firstly, from Garon, how would you push the safety campus movement in Monash, A, virtually, and B, physically, for students to stand up and combat against sexual harassment?
We promote the safety on campus and also online by clearly stating that our women's officer and the Monash community would not tolerate any discrimination or threats against those minorities and who, especially for women and the LGBTQI plus community. And we believe that by publicizing any educational information about these topics will promote understanding of how inclusivity is important and equality is important in the university as well. For physically, we believe that for women especially, we believe that by utilizing the women's room, well, we believe it will promote the safety for women. And for the other students, we believe that by providing understanding on inclusivity, that will help to promote the safety on campus as well.
All right. So hope that answers your question. If you have any follow-up, feel free to drop into the comments. So moving on, we have another question from May. How do you ensure minorities on campus feel safe, aside from providing a feedback channel, since the communities face discrimination and violence in Malaysia?
We believe that we can ensure the minorities on campus to feel safe by providing educational information as we stated earlier. For example, like what is the LGBTQI plus community is and how important is the equality between people and inclusivity is in the community. And also by clearly stating about this and promoting those mindset to students, we believe this will be a starting point for people to have and share the thoughts of having including all of the genders and sexual orientation and people to feel safe in the community.
I would like to add on to that. So, fostering a culture of inclusivity and acceptance will also overall provide a supportive, positive, and healthy environment and experience for students to experience in campus.
Okay, so we do have a question following that, following up on a previous one regarding keeping the anonymity of the victims to ensure confidentiality. How do you also make sure the proof the victim has provided will be strong and solid enough for Monash to take serious action?
We will ensure the proofs to be strong by asking the university to have a close conversation with the victim, but also with the offender as well, to not have any differences in their opinion and for the case, and also by asking the university for follow up if the procedure and the case has been well handled.
Okay. So, yeah, thank you for your answer. Moving on from Garon, will you include every student in the subcommittee team, regardless of gender, to promote the gender equality movement, as well as to have better coverage of the community?
Yes, we would definitely include all gender identity students and also all sexuality people, and especially for women and the LGBTQI plus community join our women's officer, because we believe by having an inclusivity in our community, we believe this will encourage people to be themselves and to express themselves throughout the Monash community.
And to add on to that, we also would want to work with a team, the subcom, that are passionate in what we do and what we strive for. And it will be easier for us to work together and communicate well and to get to a target where we want to aim together.
All right, so we have one more question left from the audience. From May, Women's has been facing difficulties in encouraging more men to participate in our events. How will it increase men's engagement and to reduce the misconception about our department?
As we stated earlier, we would try to provide fundamental educational information such as what is women's right and what are the difficulties women has facing and the LGBTQI plus community as well. By providing knowledge, we believe that this will contribute to a better understanding, even though it may take time, but it will definitely progress through by taking actions gradually. So I believe providing education no information and also having a discussion and conversation would encourage male students to participate in the women's officers event as well.
All right. So we have time for one more question. So if any of the audience would like to drop any question in the comments, feel free to do so. And yeah, we are almost reaching an end for this debate session. But before that, let's see if there are any more questions from the audience. Okay. From Kirti, do you have any follow up or any questions that you'd like to add in?
I just wanted to ask if you guys understand the seriousness of the office that of the office that you will be occupying if you are to win, because it's not just a representation. It's also, while that is very important, it also has to be a safe space, and we have to work closely with student life when it comes to issues. It's I would say, unlike other MUSA departments, there is an element to women's, which is, I'm sorry, was I lagging right now?
Slightly, but you're back now.
Okay, all right. So I was saying that I was just wondering if you guys understand the seriousness of the role that you will be playing as the women's officers of the school. You know, it is very important for you guys to be involved with the department right now. You can do that from now on. Go through the policies. Um, Make sure that raising awareness is not your only job scope. There's more than that that you need to do. So yeah, I was just wondering if you guys understand the seriousness of your role.
We do understand it is important to be involved in the community and to have a close relationship with the students to take this problem seriously. And we believe this having this women's officer's position is a privilege because we can stand up for students who is having a difficulties or hardship in their university life. So we would want to gain more knowledge on how to handle the incidents and how to support the students to have a better university life.
All right. So moving forward, we have one follow-up question and one final question that we'll take in. So from Garon to support May's question, how will it be efficient for information sharing and what will you do since not all students will listen?
So we do understand that we cannot force everyone to understand the things that we're aiming for. And also, the main point for us is to raise awareness and letting them know how important it is, raising important issues like this and spreading it to a wider audience, because it is really important to know and acknowledge and understand. So this will lead to being respectful and also being educated, and this will promote an overall culture of inclusivity on campus.
All right. So moving on to the final question from Eunice. Hello, candidates. Both mentioned about mindset and spreading awareness, but that's the ideal situation. What if the minority is not open-minded to that or refuse to accept what you're promoting?
We do understand that all people are not open to speak about themselves and about the incidents that they have and difficulties that they face. However, we believe that overall, about talking about these topics and promoting the awareness of these topics will help other people to understand the difficulties that the minorities have, and also not only just taking and spreading awareness, but also to take action such as having an event and discussion to promote understanding on these topics. We believe that will help to promote the understanding for the community.
All right. So thank you for your answer. Hope that answers the question. So we've come to an end of the Q&A. Um, we've come to an end to a Q&A session. So now we'll be moving forward to the closing statement. So over to you, candidates.
As women's officers, again, we seek to provide safety for all students regardless of the gender identity and sexual orientation, feeling safe to express themselves in their own identity and who they are without the fear of being discriminated. Along with the safety, we would promote inclusivity by providing educational information and activities for interaction to encourage acceptance and understanding of diversity through events, and nurture a culture of acceptance and respect on the campus.
Moreover, raising awareness on gender and sexuality issues by having discussions and conversations that shares educational and informative topics and to provide fundamental knowledge, which this will contribute to a better understanding and consequently provide a platform to exchange thoughts and opinions. By being fully engaged in our role and responsibilities, we would strive to be approachable and responsive for a better university life for students at Monash. Overall, our goal is to provide safety and inclusivity in the diverse community in Monash and to make students feel comfortable to be themselves without the fear of discriminated. Most importantly, provide an overall healthy, positive, and supportive experience and environment for students on campus. Thank you for your attention, and we hope you will support us.
All right. So thank you, candidates, for your closing statement, and to our audience as well as office bearer for joining in. Uh, yeah, thank you so much for your questions. So that brings to an end for today's debate session for women's officer. So moving forward, we will be having a short break before we start on our next debate session, which will be taking place at 1 p.m. for our welfare officer candidates. So see you all there and take care, everyone. Stay safe.